Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of the Cinematropolis.com, your home to thoughtful conversations on film and this year's podcast media partner for the dCFF 2024 Film Festival. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and today we're talking with the director of one of this year's opening night films. It's also the world premiere of the film, Saucedo, the story of a boxing champion who is forced to retire early. More information on that here in a moment. We're going to kick things off by talking with the film's director, Emmett Berg, about how he discovered this story, a little bit more of his relationship with the subject. We'll also cover his approach to exploring what it sounds like are some pretty delicate subjects and personal subjects. And then we'll close out the show by learning about when you can watch Saucedo at this year's festival and beyond the festival. Before we get to today's conversation, I wanted to note that if you're listening and you enjoy the show, please make sure to subscribe to your preferred podcast app and leaving us a rating and review, especially if you're listening to this. All of our dCFF coverage that's coming out each and every day. The fastest way to have these interviews in your ears is by subscribing on your preferred podcast player. But enough with that. Let's talk a little bit more about today's film, Saucedo. So according to the description from the dCFF website, Saucedo explores the emotional journey of boxing champion Alex Saucedo, who suffers a career-ending brain injury, forcing him to redefine his identity, find new purpose, and take care of his family. This cinema verite feature documentary is a raw and intimate portrait of the resilience and redemption. dCFF is hosting its world premiere. I'm very thrilled today to be joined by the film's director. He also shot the film, and as with the case with many documentaries, kind of wore a lot of different hats. Emmett Berg. Emmett, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for having me into your awesome home studio here. It's a great way to spend my Wednesday.
Well, thank you. We were just talking. It sounded like you landed on a plane, hopped in a car, and drove straight to this house for a podcast. So thanks for going on the adventure. Tell me a little bit more about Saucedo. Of course, he is a very world-famous boxer. Tell me a little bit more about his story, your relationship with the subject.
Yeah, Alex is a great guy. He is a standout father and friend. But he also was a professional boxer, and he was a very good one. And he was ranked 2 in the world, was fighting under Top Rank and ESPN, and was really a fight away from becoming a world champion, from making millions of dollars and kind of introducing his family to a lifestyle that he had dreamed about for a long time, and kind of, in his quest to materialize his dreams. So yeah, Alex is a great guy. He actually came to the U.S. when he was around 7 years old from Mexico. His family's from a place called Miyoki that's in Chihuahua, Mexico, kind of northern Mexico, and he came to Oklahoma City. And this is, really where he grew up, and this is where he kind of came into his own. And he talks a lot about, not being able to speak English when he came here, and learning to assimilate, but really kind of the foundation that Oklahoma City has provided him. And that was something that he always made clear to me. And when I knew him when he was fighting, he'd always talk about Oklahoma City, and was always in a bit of a rush to get back here. And I'd always wondered what was going on out here, and what y'all were doing. So yeah, Alex is a great guy. He's an incredible boxer, but an even better person. And yeah, he's a star of the movie.
Did you have an ongoing relationship with him before you started the documentary?
I did. Yeah. I've been around boxing for most of my life. I love it. It's a brutal sport, but it's incredibly beautiful, and it's I'm not a fighter myself, but I've always had the utmost respect for fighters, and I've always had a lot of admiration for that culture. And I grew up in Los Angeles, and there was a gym that I trained out there called Churchill Boxing, that's in Santa Monica. And I was training with a guy named Pedro Nem, who's an incredible trainer who is still there. And Pedro trained Alex. And so, I'd always heard about Alex through Pedro, and I started to kind of form a relationship when Alex would come into town for his camps. I went to a few of his fights in LA, and went to a fight of his in New York, and and was always a fan of his and thought that he was just an incredibly sweet and sensitive person, which is actually not as rare in boxing as you might think, but he's definitely, he leads with that, and I think that's rare. And so, there was always such a sweetness to him and such a kindness that I could always, sense. And in the back of my head, as as is hard to ignore, when you're dealing with the world of boxing, is just kind of how delicate it is at large, and how, really these guys are a fight or two away from having to make a dramatic readjustment with their lives. And kind of the dangers and kind of fundamental risk that comes from not playing a team sport and not having your next game or your next practice guaranteed, and having the highs of the highest of highs with boxing and the lowest of lows. And so these were always things that I thought about, and I knew Alex, and I just thought, I thought, it's not somewhere you like to go, but I'd always thought about, if something were to happen to him, he was going to have a hard time. And that was something that, really kind of pricked me in a certain way, and wasn't something that I was able to really let go of. And in October of 2020, he fought Arnold Barboza. It was actually during COVID, and it was just kind of weird times in general. And they fought in a kind of a bubble environment, and there was no audience. And he ended up suffering an accidental headbutt in that fight, in the opening round, which caused a brain hemorrhage. And he continued to fight the rest of the fight, lost by decision, and was then immediately taken to the hospital. And really within 45 minutes was told that he would never be able to box again.
Just like that, your world, his world in that scenario was just turned upside down. Thing you train your whole life to do, all of a sudden you can't do it again. So like, what do you do? So at what point during your relationship here, and you're following and kind of staying in touch with him, did you decide, hey man, I want to tell your story?
It honestly started probably an hour after he fought. I really started thinking about it, and was thinking about I was in New York, he was in Vegas, and I could only imagine what was going on in that time after the fight between him and his fiancée Tanya and the doctors. And, it was really kind of that weekend I reached out to Tanya, and I shared with her that this was something that, I really wanted to do, and that this would be something to honor his legacy and to help them, potentially try and make sense of this chaos. And so it was really kind of within a week that I reached out to them and started talking to them, and talking to Tanya, and she started sharing some, updates and sharing some photos with me. And within a week of him getting home, I was on my first plane out here.
Wow. It all sort of happens fast, and it sounds like, working with this family was a really important piece of this. I'm just curious, what was the reaction when you reach out within a week? You're like, hey, I love you. I want to tell your story. What does that interaction look like? And, because at that point you're like, hey, that also means I want to be a part of your life for a certain period of time. And I don't want to say uncertain, but you're going to be more ingrained in their life for a little while you're sort of trying to figure out, how are we going to tell your story? How are we going to honor the legacy, and really make sure that people have the best sense of like who you are and what you're about and what you're going through?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it was definitely hard. And a huge part of that was just being there as his friend, and being there as his friend and empathizing with him and just feeling what he was going through so deeply personally, that I was completely overwhelmed. And my only thought was, I just have to keep making this documentary, and I need to share this, and I need to let others feel this. And, kind of a separate comment of I've shot with some other boxers before and some other athletes, and I've worked with some who, will constantly just be like suggesting different shots for me to get of them, and are like, what if I do this and what if I pose here, and like are totally playing to the camera and have, just kind of this whole act down, which is funny and it's fun and it, is helpful in certain situations. But that was never the case with Alex. He was like, I think very quickly came to trust me and kind of see me a bit synonymously with my camera, and from the beginning I made it clear to him what I was doing, and that I was gonna that this was going to take a while, and that they might not always understand what it was in the moment, and I didn't understand what it was in the moment, but that we were going to really find a way to inspire others and not let this moment go untethered.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, thanks for sharing, and again, kind of contrasting your experience with him versus other boxers. What has been the most challenging part of working on this documentary?
Well, I'd just like to put it out there. This is my first movie. This is my first documentary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So everything was a challenge and everything was a first in so many ways. I think that something that's unique about verite filmmaking is how much of the film is discovered in the edit, and how editing a documentary in so many ways is writing it, and kind of really coming to understand that process. And something that I also set out from the beginning was not wanting to make a boxing movie and not wanting to make a boxing documentary and kind of put ourselves in that niche, because I thought that his story was so much bigger than that and so much more relatable. So that was, I don't know, as much of a challenge as just something that, myself as well as my editor Luca Balzer were very much, thinking about how can we play this in a way that is relatable first off and is truthful. So those were kind of that was kind of our mantra throughout this process. But I don't want to speak for Alex, and I know that it was hard for him having me in his face all the time. And like you'll see in this film, I basically at certain points was getting into bed with him with the camera and was like, they're just trying to, tell this story as intimately as I could. And that's never easy, but, I love Alex and I love that family so much, and they totally welcome me. And, I think, we're all excited that this has the potential to inspire so many.
What would you say in terms of your experience? How has it been rewarding to sort of experience this alongside Alex? What have been kind of the rewards of getting, I mean, obviously you talk about the challenges, but there are, hopefully, I'm sure he's inspired you as well.
Absolutely. Alex inspires me constantly. I mean, Alex wakes up at 4 a.m. every day and, gets home at 9 p.m, and is, one of the most hardworking people I know, is one of the most disciplined people I know, is one of the most family-oriented people I know, and he really inspires me as a person, and he inspires me as a man. And it's an honor to share this experience with him, but I'm just so grateful that we get to celebrate Alex and cement his legacy in this way.
So you talked about there being a little bit of a distance in between. I'm just kind of curious in terms of your process of doing the documentary. Was it you'd go out and do shoots for 1 to 2 weeks at a time? Were you flying out on the weekly? What was that sort of schedule like?
Yeah, I was coming here for 5-day kind of spurts every month, I would say. I was basically coming monthly. If I knew kind of something was going down, then I would make a special trip for it. And there was a few times where I kind of had to go through Instagram and find some awesome local videographers who shot a few things for me here and there. But yeah, I just tried to kind of just come down here on a regular basis and stay for 5 to days to a week at a time. And but that's also just kind of comes with the world of documentary filmmaking is obviously how much is not in this cut. And I could go on telling you about all of the other kind of paths that I went down making this, and I ended up kind of going all over this state, and all over the place, and and then you get to editing the movie and you're like, what are we doing here? What did we originally set out to do? And you kind of hone it back in and try and make something as concise as possible. So, but yeah, I was coming out here for kind of 5-day stretches.
I think I love that you're describing sort of the challenge of the documentary, though, because you don't know how much you need necessarily. I mean, certain things you need, but also it's like, you're like, I don't even know what I don't know sort of thing. So you just get everything, right?
Exactly.
So you came to Oklahoma pretty regularly, and this is your first time in Oklahoma City. It was to work on this documentary. What was your experience working in Oklahoma?
So my first time here was actually in October of 2020, and I got here during that ice storm.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The worst ice storm, I think.
It was crazy.
It was awful.
It was really scary. And I landed at the airport, and I got in that bus to go to the rental car place, and I couldn't even see out the windows of the bus. It was so kind of fogged and frozen, and I really had no idea what was going on. And also, just full transparency, I went to the University of Texas for a year, and I'm still a huge UT fan, but I had always just heard very negative. I had a bit of that. I had a bit of animosity. I had some thoughts in my head.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of had to work past that. No, but it was great. I've discovered you guys definitely have seasons here. It definitely gets pretty cold and pretty hot, and you just have to deal with tornadoes in between. But
all part of the privileges of living in Oklahoma. The radical weather, the OU and OSU sports rivalry, also with UT. How many years did it take you from start to finish in terms of filming? How long were you here?
I was here for like 3.5 years.
Wow.
On and off. It took a while. These things take a while. That's what I'm learning. So yeah, and it's funny, I'm here now, and I'm lucky to have some of my friends in town, and they're just like, whoa, you really know your way around here. And I'm like, yeah, I've spent a lot of time here. But it's an awesome place, and it's also just crazy how much it's changed since I've been here and how much it's growing. And, I know that there's a lot kind of being done to help promote film here and productions. And I think that's so awesome. And, yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, it's we're so thrilled that you were, of course, I know in relation to Alex, this was obviously a really important place, but also we're thankful that you made the film here in Oklahoma, and I'm sure we're able to showcase that in various ways as it related to the story you were trying to tell. So this is your first film. What would you go back and tell yourself at the beginning of the process? So you know what you know now. You could go back to Ice Storm Apocalypse 2020 and say, here's what you should do or not do, or here's what you should know. What advice would you give yourself?
I would probably just tell myself to calm down generally. Otherwise I wouldn't want to say too much because I'd probably psych myself out. I think all of us as filmmakers are, and as artists are a bit insecure. And I think I was definitely much more back then, and I was a bit frantic and I was scared. And I remember one night I was uploading footage and I accidentally lost a bunch of it. And it was one of the worst nights of my life. And I remember, being in this hotel room here by myself after I just deleted all this footage, just feeling like I was like the biggest waste of life ever. So I would just tell myself to calm down, and that, but not to let up, and to keep going, and also just to trust myself. And I think that's a big part of this. And it's like, I've been saying this, I just see, and I feel it within me. I want to, go from one thing to the next and the next. And I want, gratification, and I want, as kind of a young person, our attention spans aren't as good as they used to be. And, but with this, it was really like, no, this is real. Just reminding myself that really I didn't have another choice, and that, I had to finish this, but that just kind of the power of seeing something through and really committing to something, which I think is becoming rarer nowadays.
I like that good advice. No matter how crazy it seems, that yeah, things are okay. They're going to be okay. And you know what you're doing. too, right? Even when you're young and you're still learning, you still know what you're doing. You have the instinct. So you're going to have your world premiere. So on Thursday, which actually, if listeners are tuning in, that is today. And I believe that is going to be in the Harkins Bricktown Auditorium, 8:45 p.m. tonight, to be specific. The credits start rolling. What do you hope audiences take away from Saucedo?
I hope that people grow, at least a slight bit as fond of him as I am. And I hope that, it strikes some kind of nerve in people. And, I hope that, we can, come to understand, how hard it is for the majority of athletes to pivot, after their careers, and to that point, what it's like to, kind of put a dream away, and kind of move on, and, that kind of loss of innocence that gets prolonged, longer for some people than others. And yeah, can hopefully, I want people to take what they will, and I don't want to put too much in their heads, but, hopefully just, an appreciation for Alex and a bit of inspiration.
What would you say when you think about Alex's journey to reinvention? What is your main takeaway about a guy who is able to really do a 180 with his life and do something different? What is your take in terms of, you're making a film about it, but I'm just curious, like your personal, like, wow, this kind of blew me away. I hadn't thought about this, or it challenges me or whatnot.
Yeah, I think that, it's really hard to do, and it's especially hard to do without the proper team in place. And I think without the proper love in someone's life and support. And that was the biggest thing I learned with Alex. And I think that, that's a huge theme of this movie, is family. And I hope that comes through in what his family was able to do for him, and obviously what he was able to do for them. But it's not easy, and it's scary, and it's terrifying for people. And I think that, we didn't want to, sugarcoat things, and we didn't want to, it's not like he became a world champion in something else. It's kind of learning to break even in a lot of ways, I think, and learning to really keep your head above the water. And now he's definitely on an upwards trajectory, but, that's not something that we wanted to, because people are talking about, is he going to come back? Is he, is this all just a cover? Is he going to, do this? And we're like, no, but he's going to learn to, come back to earth, and he's going to learn to, be a, quote unquote normal person.
Well, awesome. I'm so excited to see the movie. I know that our attendees here at dCFF24 are going to be thrilled and have a unique opportunity. Again, this is the world premiere of your first film, Saucedo. Last question. We've been asking this to every guest who's come on through this dCFF24 season. What would you say is your favorite film going experience? Doesn't necessarily have to be your favorite movie, but your favorite film going experience.
Ever?
Yeah, ever. Last 5 years, whatever rings a bell.
I just saw Furiosa. We were just talking about that, and it's so awesome. And I'm really sad that it didn't crush the box office.
It's heartbreaking.
This Memorial Day is scaring me, and it's annoying. And I just know that everyone who's seen it has liked it. And I love George Miller, and that he's still at it at 79, 80 years old. That was it. But to be totally honest, like, I'm just going to sound like every other like Marvel person, which I'm actually not, but I do have to say that I went and saw the original Iron Man with my mom, at the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica. And that movie changed my life. And it just kind of opened a Pandora's box of, a deeper fascination with this industry. And, it's not my most sophisticated film school answer, but that was definitely my most memorable experience. In the
that
theater.
Movie, people forget at the time, that movie was super fresh. It was radically different. We had never seen a superhero movie done that way ever at the time. Still great. And by the way, you can say what you say about Marvel, but that movie is still phenomenal.
It's incredible.
Where can listeners keep up with you and your work, or maybe the film online if they want to keep up with Saucedo after dCenter?
So please, everyone, come out tonight. And I think we have another showing on Saturday, I believe. Please come out and support. And then we will be on streaming in a few months, and I don't want to say too much, but it should be on a platform that hopefully you carry. So.
Awesome. Well, that's very exciting. Can't wait to find out more there. Well, listeners, again, this is Saucedo. The movie is playing tonight. That's Thursday, June 6th, 8:45 p.m., Harkins Bricktown Auditorium 11, with that encore screening being Saturday, June 8th at 8:30, Harkins Bricktown Auditorium 12. It's going to be a great time. It sounds like it's going to be a really moving documentary. I know I'm excited to see it. For all other things dCenter, you can head over to deadcenterfilm.org and consider supporting the festival by purchasing a badge or individual ticket from the more than 160 films we have playing this year. Emmett Berg, the director of Saucedo, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This has been an honor, and thank you, dCenter.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, listeners. We'll catch you again next time.